Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the second session of our Modern Product Data Workflows webinar series presented by Product Management Today and sponsored by Looker. I'm Hannah Flynn, the Site Manager of Product Management Today. We have 6 fresh sessions planned for you filled with top insights on achieving product success with data. We can show you a little bit more on this if Haarthi, you wouldn't mind sharing your screen. I'm really looking forward to interviewing and talking with each participant in what will likely prove to be interesting and amusing conversations. And don't worry, they're being recorded in case you have to miss any. We have 6 fresh sessions planned for you, and they're filled with top insights on product data. So we want to thank Looker for sponsoring this webinar series and helping us to make this happen. If you're not familiar with them, Looker is an inventive software company employing business intelligence to make data accessible to organizations and data analysts by focusing on the intersection of economics and engineering, helping customers use data to achieve success. Through their fresh approach to business intelligence, Looker helps businesses thrive with easily accessible and consistently defined information. Thanks again, Looker. So please feel free to ask questions during today's session. You can do so by submitting them into the question panel on the right side of your screen. We'll try to answer as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. And we have a little demo on how to ask questions on the next slide. Our lovely Shelley will be acting as tech support today, and she'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So please say hi to her in the question box. Lastly, if you have any audio issues during today's presentation, you may wish to dial in by phone. You can do so by selecting the More button on the upper right portion of your screen, and then just select the Switch to Phone option. And so today I'm talking to Haarthi Sadasivam, who's a senior technical product marketing manager at Looker. And then we'll be talking with Richard Cheng, who's an associate product manager at Mark 43. Haarthi and Richard, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about yourselves, and why don't you take it away?
Awesome, thanks, Hannah. Hi, everyone. I am Haarthi. I'm a solutions manager here at Looker. And today, at least for the first part of this webinar, we'll be talking about how you can embed content and data through a platform like Looker into your businesses and in your product. We'll cover everything from optimization time throughout the development process of incorporating data into your product and being able to scale as your company grows, to being able to provide that world-class experience for customers that are using your product. And then we'll switch gears and I'll hand over the microphone to Richard from Mark 43, who will talk about their particular experiences with embedding Looker into their product. So before we get started, I'd actually like to start with a poll question. So if everyone could answer this poll question, how familiar are you with Looker? We can kind of use that as a gauge for how to cater this webinar.
We have the responses rushing in. We're just going to let this run for about 5 more seconds so that everybody who's still drinking their coffee can put their cup down and vote. All right.
Okay, it looks like some of you have heard of Looker, but maybe the majority don't fully know kind of what Looker is or what Looker does, and I'll cover a little bit of that during my presentation, and we'll touch on it a little bit more when we walk through Mark 43's implementation of Looker in their product. So for any organization, really, growth is one of the key indicators of success. So how are you able to retain users across your product? Are your users engaged, and are they getting value out of your product? And are there new sources of revenue that you could be tapping into to get that growth that you're looking for? And are there new products and services that could help attract new users? What we've found is that linking data that you might have as a company that you've collected and showing that data or making that data available to your customers can help identify these different areas of growth. And really incorporating data in product management, first and foremost, provides just a better product for your customers. You're able to maximize on some of your engineering investments, and you're able to make better decisions by maximizing the value of this particular resource, and you're making your product stickier. and you're ensuring that you're delivering the right user experience for your users. And so how can you start to leverage that data to fuel this type of growth within your organization? So we have customers like Namely that are using the Looker platform to kind of productize and internally embed Looker in their platform. And so Namely, for those of you that aren't familiar, they're an HR analytics company, and they provide data in the form of dashboards and reports to all of their HR reps across their entire customer base, across the entire SMB market and mid-market. And their HR reps are able to get access to this data, use that to power their decisions, and are more engaged within the Namely product and platform as well, in addition to that. And because they're getting these users engaged with their site, they're able to get even more in resources to invest. And so as a growing company, you'll be able to really use these new streams of revenue and these higher customer engagement users or engaged users to show that rapid return on investment within your product. That leads to our second poll question. So how do you leverage your data across your product?
We're starting to have the responses pull in. Let's have this go for about 15 more seconds. Looks like we're getting a pretty good variety of answers. And if your answer happens to be other, then definitely make sure to let us know in the questions panel what your answer is. We're very curious. All right, let's check out the results.
Awesome. So it looks like certain organizations kind of build their own solution to leverage data across your product. Others use an analytical or vendor. And so I'll kind of cover what both of these different solutions look like and kind of the pros and cons of each of them.
Great. And just to let you know, our one of our respondents who replied other has followed up in the questions panel and said they use a hybrid solution.
Got it. Cool. So as a growing company, you're going to want to be sharp and focused on your core competency. So this means investing in engineering resources to kind of build the best product, the best brand, and the best technology in the market. What this could mean is that you outsource everything else that doesn't fall into that core focus area for your product and your organization. So, you know, as an e-commerce company, you might not necessarily build your own HR platform to manage payroll within your company. Or as an ad agency or digital marketing agency, you're not going to create your own CRM tool like Salesforce to manage customer relationships with your company. And so data analytics for your product kind of tends to fall into that same bucket where you want to maybe leverage companies that are already focusing on data analytics as their core product. And as you're starting to think about kind of productionizing your data and productizing your data to internally embed data in your product and provide that additional kind of level of value to your customers, two key areas to evaluate with every solution are going to be kind of the user experience for your end users and your customers, and the ability for your solution to scale as you as an organization grow your user base and kind of grow the data that you're collecting and want to show to your users. And I'll cover both of these considerations in more detail, and we'll start with user experience first.
Haarthi, your voice is break. Sorry, really quickly, your voice is breaking up a tiny bit. Could you say that last sentence again, please?
Sure. So we'll cover both of these key considerations that you should be thinking about as you start to think about embedding data into your product. And I'll kind of start with user experience first and what to consider when you're thinking about the user experience when you're incorporating data into your product.
Great.
So within your product, as you're starting to bring in data, are you able to leverage your solution to kind of engage users seamlessly and in a very visually appealing interface? And does that interface kind of mimic the look and feel of your product? For example, can you pull in your own kind of custom fonts, themes, colors, and incorporate the data that you're showing? And so here I have two examples, one from a Looker demo site where we're able to show that we're pulling in data points through the Looker platform and mimicking that to the look and feel and brand of the site. And then the other example with Mark 43 is actually a Looker dashboard that is, you know, that has been changed to match the branding and the color of Mark 43. And so for users that are using these platforms, they're able to get kind of a seamless experience within the site, and they're able to look at a visually appealing a product that is cohesive. And kind of the next step with that user experience is your UX intuitive. Are you creating intuitive user experiences for every type of user who is using your product, all the way from the data consumers to the explorers who are learning and asking more questions of your data, to content creators that might be creating content through your product for their coworkers or others using the product as well? And your consumers, can they consume data in a curated way? Are you able to surface the content that might be relevant to them in the form of dashboards and reports? And can they ask more questions of the data right from within the tool? Are there going to be abilities to interact with the tool through custom filters, through just seamless experiences? And can they filter down to just the subset of questions that are relevant to them? And then for your content creators, can premium users create content if they wish? So here we have two examples of being able to really ask the types of questions that you want to ask to get a level of detail for your customers right within the product. And Richard will cover this in more detail in his presentation on how Mark 43 is using Looker to provide that experience to users and customers that are asking more questions of the data and creating content for other users. And then finally, are you able to create custom and flexible data workflows for your end users that improve their productivity? And what do I mean by these flexible workflows? Are you able to allow your users to get data in the tools that they use most? So if your users see data in your product and they want to take action on that data in another tool like Marketo, are they able to send that data to the tools that they use most and kind of take action on that tool through these custom data workflows? And so the other kind of big piece is just going to be scalable architecture. Is your solution, is your product going to scale as your users grow? And as you start to really think about whether your solution, your product will scale in terms of being able to create and productionize your data, think about whether your solution is a black box. Is there consensus and trust on metric definitions? Your analysts, for example, should be able to iterate and work on collaboratively on data definitions and metrics for your user base. And so what does that process for then making updates look like? Your analysts should be able to scale data requirements coming in from your customers from anywhere from 2 customers all the way to 2,000. And does the product that you're selecting, the tool that you're selecting to enable this data access, give you that level of data governance? And then are you able to leverage fresh and recent data to feed into your product for analytics? If that process involves, the need to cube your data for every new type of question, then that just won't scale with your data and data engineering teams. We talked about kind of scaling our data analytics team in the previous slide and being able to allow them to set up reusable metrics and definitions for data. But how does your data engineering team scale as your user base grows? And then are you able to leverage additional security and platform enterprise kind of measures into your product. While you're building out your embedded analytics solution, you might think that it's just a matter of building out visualizations and connecting that to a database. But then there are all of these other components that form that user experience that are necessary for you to be able to scale, like security and administration, and content management. And so does the solution that you've selected, does it help you scale across some of these other things that are maybe not as apparent through the evaluation process? And so what does building your product with Looker's embedded capabilities look like? So Looker's architecture kind of keeps you agile and helps you get off the ground fast. And really, rather than moving the data and building new pipelines and creating cubes of your data, we connect directly to your database. So there's no need to kind of create additional data marts. And once you connect directly to your database within the Looker platform, you can actually define those reusable metrics and make sure that customers have their own virtual environment that allows them to access only the data that's relevant to them. And this architecture makes scaling simple and secure. So, as new users log into your product, you're able to seamlessly authenticate them to give them access to just their information. And on top of that, Looker gives you several different ways to show off all of the data that you've collected to your end users within your product. And you can do that in the form of interactive, responsive visualizations. You can give them the ability to self-serve and explore their own data, like that slide that I just showed you. You give them the ability to create their own data workflows to export data from your product into other tools. And then you also give them the ability to save and schedule content that they've created. And so you're able to provide a custom-built app that brings in all of your data into your product, into the hands of your customers through their existing workflows with Looker. Here are just a few examples of customers embedding with Looker. We talked about Namely, and we have Mark 43 on the line to kind of speak about their experiences with embedding with Looker. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Richard from Mark 43. So let's have him share his screen.
All right, Richard, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, perfect. I think I'm sharing now, correct?
Yes, if you just put it on presentation mode and we'll all be good. All right, rock and roll.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, my name is Richard Cheng, and I'm the Analytics Product Manager at Mark 43. In the past, I've also been on the Mark 43 Professional Services team, working kind of side by side with our clients to deploy our projects. And then before that, I worked in public sector tech consulting. So really, kind of all these experiences has really given me a keen eye to looking at client needs and desires, and then really now translating into product development and how we grow and scale with our analytics platform right now. So what is Mark 43? Mark 43 is a public safety software company, and we build RMS and CAD products. For those who aren't familiar with this landscape, CAD stands for computer-aided dispatch. So if you think of a 911 call, pretty much what happens is that call gets transferred to a dispatch center. Dispatchers use our CAD software in order to assign first responders to an event. And first responders are using our software to get situational awareness of the event before they arrive on scene. If this event occurs and requires a report after it, that is what the records management side is for. So that is used for report taking. If the event requires further investigation beyond that, we have a case management solution that allows detectives to track their investigation. And then we also have other ancillary features such as evidence and warrant tracking. So why was kind of our company founded, and how does that tie into data? Our co-founders, they saw a real strong opportunity to kind of rebuild fundamental public safety software and bring our first responders into the 21st century. They really saw like a very big gap in between what technology looked like in everyone's consumer lives versus how our public safety professionals saw technology and really what they need to keep us safe as a society. As you can kind of see by some of these news articles, outdated legacy technology, sometimes built decades ago, has created a lot of blockers to agencies' workflows. And then in some of the more serious events, really gives us consequences to society and the safety of our communities. So how does stats fall into that? Our company founded back in 2012, and really where we started was with building analytic tools. But what we realized is this was a flashy solution, but what it did is it was treating symptoms of the industry's fundamental problem of data collection and management, but it wasn't resolving the core issues. So really then kind of thinking back is kind of how we transitioned to records management systems, because really what we saw is that we had to address the backbone of departments and build robust systems for data collection and management before we moved on to crime analysis and kind of that deeper level of things. Now we have really built up a pretty strong platform for what RMS and CAD is. And from there, we're moving into deeper tools for enhanced crime analysis and intelligence. And we're really using Looker kind of as one of our primary venues or frameworks in order to do that. So how do we look at business intelligence and analytics within Mark 43? We kind of see it within 5 different areas, and all of these work together to give our clients a cohesive look at their stats. So what you see kind of, if I look from the right-hand side and moving around in a circle, is what clients are first really attracted to within our platform is looking at rich in-app features for them to find and view data, when this is really within our module dashboards where they can see a quick view of the information refreshed really quickly. And the second component of that is looking at very robust advanced search. So they can search by almost all the fields within a report. And this really is differentiating us from a lot of these legacy competitors. Third component there is also a data lake. We give clients access to their data within SQL, and so technical users can look at that and query information. But really what I wanted to focus on today is kind of our 2 newer areas that we're really excited about. And these are used and created with Powered by Looker. So if you look here at the bottom 2 sections where there's the User Explorer and Mark 43 Report Library, what these are is the Mark 43 Report Library is a collection of useful stat reports that we can use and distribute to all our clients. And then the User Explorer is a self-service business intelligence tool that allows users to create rich data dashboards with the very, robust and integrated visualizations and easily in a couple minutes. So take a look at one of kind of the dashboards that we have within our Mark 43 report library. What we have here is what investigative supervisors use to track case activity within the system. So detectives that have, a very heavy caseload, cases that are open by the type, cases by status, and really looking at like what different units have an open caseload. And really what I want to kind of show is through all the different stages of how we came about this and really where Looker fell into place there. So when we were looking at case management and working side by side with detectives, really kind of what we saw within the existing landscape is there's a lot of clunky, confusing legacy software tools. And really what this made, or really the situation that occurred from this, is detectives were frequently moving back to paper processes. So they were tracking their case activity on whiteboards, manila folders, sticky notes, and really this was due to the complexity of using the system and the system not getting all the tracking that they needed. So what do? We created an easy to use case management platform that's integrated real time with the RMS to feed in data in real time. And from there, we created easy to use stat reports with our canned and ready to go Mark 43 report library. how do we come about what would be important within a case management dashboard? So really with our process, what we really stress is sitting side by side with detectives, detective supervisors, command staff, really kind of stakeholders from the department at all different levels in order to really understand what their needs are. So we do this in a couple different ways. Traditional requirement gathering meetings, sitting side by side with the client. We look at focus groups, groups of the end users who are using the system. We shadow detectives and we shadow officers doing their job. And that even includes going on ride-alongs, sitting in an officer's car, and sometimes we visit jail as well. This happens to be me in a picture of a jail cell. And where we go from there is then we figure out how we're going to deliver on this. With everyone and kind of understanding how everyone does, a hybrid approach or uses a business analytics platform already, or they're creating something in-house. Really what our decision was to focus our engineering talent on creating core public safety software. So really looking at our core competencies, and then we were leveraging Looker as our business intelligence platform in order to create these dashboards. So this really lets us deliver industry-leading business intelligence solutions without building, a whole company around that. And really, that was important for us in order to prioritize what our engineers are working on and what was important. So then fitting within the framework of what Looker can do, really our typical process is going through traditional stages of development. So we do a dashboard requirement specification where we specify exactly what will be in each section of the dashboard. We'll do a tech review to make sure that the data components are being pulled from the right places. We do some development work, QA, release, and then we gather updates and then release them on a bi-weekly basis. So this really, by using Powered by Looker, what we really get is a faster time to market with these dashboards. Second main example is looking at our reports user explorer. So the Explorer is a feature within Looker that allows end users to quickly look at their data, segment it, pick specific fields, build visualizations, and really create their own dashboards. So when we're looking at kind of where the Explorer would fit within the public safety software market, what we saw is for most of our clients, what they saw is a lack of real-time stat reporting. They saw a lot of disparate systems, and they saw from all this, it was a huge difficulty in order for them to pull stats, and then really a lot of human error as well. We talk a lot of crime analysts or a lot of people within the department, and a lot of times the response is, the data or what they get really depends on who's pulling it. So really, what we wanted to do here was use and leverage Powered by Looker to create an easy to use UI that allows clients to build and share their dashboards within minutes. And this is what was really key for us is that it contained rich visualizations, it was refreshed with data in real time, and the technical knowledge and expertise wasn't necessary there. So, we are able to train our clients within a couple hours and to really take on their own business intelligence needs and self-service. So how do we come about what would be important within this user explorer? We work side by side with crime analysts to really understand what data fields they need, and really from there, iterating on each section of what that meant. So we translated what the Mark 43 application fields were into the database fields. And we've constantly been prototyping early versions of the user explorer to gain feedback on everything. So, we don't want to overwhelm users with too many fields. We want to make sure that labeling is clear, and we want to make sure that the data being pulled back is something that they can use and trust. From there, we did, again, very traditional kind of development process where we made sure that we got all the requirements down correctly, did a tech review of that, did development, QA, release, and testing. So moving on from there, kind of the question that a lot of people ask is, why do we choose Looker as our business intelligence, for our business intelligence needs? So kind of really for these 4 key reasons. First of all, we really wanted a native embed within our application that was deeply integrated. For us, it was important that users weren't signing on to a different system in order to get their stats, and that they're using it right within our application. The ease of use is definitely something that was a huge criteria for us in choosing this, in terms of having training for users and developers that was streamlined and easy to get people on board. And this is also supported by a wealth of documentation from Looker, and then the Looker support team has also been very helpful whenever we had questions. Security and kind of the technical nature of this. So for Mark 43, we look at a lot of, and we have a lot of very sensitive data. So having critical security that allows us to permission data and a technical infrastructure that allows us to control where data lives and where data is going is really important to us. And lastly, what was really important for us is the Looker partnership. So they've been really supportive to us as we've grown. This is kind of in a couple different ways. They have live chat, they have office hours if you're in a city with a Looker office that you can go and talk to their engineers, and a customer success manager and engineer that really supports the technical and business ends of our partnership needs. And really what this is allowing us to do through this partnership is expand rapidly our business intelligence needs and really deliver for our clients what they care about, which are the stats in the end. So as we currently use it, we use Looker in order to meet state and federal compliance needs. And we use it for management business intelligence dashboards, like these case management dashboards. But really, where we want to go with this is further pushing the Explorer, really giving the end users, the ability to create and build these dashboards themselves, and then dig into more of the kind of common stat reporting needs for all of our clients that are common across them within our report library. So from there, I just want to say thank you guys for all attending today, and then we can take any questions and answers at this time.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard and Haarthi. And I understand attendees if you need to leave, but I just wanted to remind you that we have 4 more sessions in this series, and you'll be able to find the schedule as it updates at the URLs at the bottom of the slide. So definitely check that out because we have a couple of really interesting episodes in store for you. All right, so with our time remaining, let's cover some audience questions. And let's see, we have a couple of good ones coming in. All right, so I'm going to start off, and I'd love to hear an answer from both Haarthi and Richard on this. Haarthi, you can give us an inside perspective, and Richard, maybe you can give us a perspective from somebody who's had to make the decision of what sort of business intelligence tool to use. We have one listener who wants to know what differentiates Looker from Tableau or PBI or another resource.
Yeah, I can tackle that question first before passing it on to Richard. So Looker connects directly to your database, and so you're leveraging really the power of your database with Looker that you might not be doing so with some of these other tools. And then on top of being able to leverage the power of your database, Looker also has this semantic layer, this modeling layer, where you're able to set up definitions between your different data points and your data entities. And setting up those definitions really allows your analysts to iterate faster in a more agile way, and really helps scale both data development, the work that you would usually associate with a data analyst, along with data engineering resources that you would leverage at the database level to manage and maintain those ETL cubes. And it really frees up both of those resources, the data analyst and the data engineers, to focus more on other interests, and it really helps accelerate your time to market for embedding within your tool.
And Richard, if you have anything to add on specifically as somebody who's had to decide what solution to use, that would be great.
Yeah, so definitely it really matches kind of what we said on that last slide in terms of moving through all the different criteria. So, looking at kind of the security, where data is sitting, the infrastructure was actually kind of the most important, or really for a lot of our infrastructure team, it was kind of the deal breaker items. So once we narrowed down that set, then we looked really strongly into usability and how to onboard people. So from the usability perspective, we've found Looker to be really easy. And then kind of that last component, which is really where we're pushing into now, is having that ability for users embedded within our application to able to explore or create these dashboards. So kind of the single sign-in authentication and being deeply embedded within our application rather than pushing our clients to a different login page was really important for us in UI.
Great. And Richard, as a follow-up question, now everybody's needs are urgent to them, but the clients that Mark 43 is servicing, their needs are often literally life or death. And so I'm wondering if you have any concerns that Mark 43 specifically had in mind when implementing a new solution, especially since you mentioned that the building analytics path ended up being less than efficient and tackling symptoms and not the underlying issue of poor records management.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah, definitely our uptime, is extremely important to us, especially on the CAD front where, people are on the other line, calling 911. And really this is every second or every almost millisecond counts in terms of making sure that first responders have the correct information to go to a scene.
Mhm.
And really kind of on the Looker side, a lot of what we're doing is using Looker to connect to the database and then pull insights for our departments so they can understand things like their response times and understand, from a situational or operational improvement perspective.
Great. Thank you. And one final question. We have a listener who's curious just about what those core issues were in the emergency services sector and then how you were able to resolve them.
Yeah, sure. So all of kind of the core issues really boils down to this market has kind of been longstanding in terms of a lot of legacy vendors who created software, a very long time ago and have kind of become incumbents in the space, but there hasn't been a lot of kind of innovation in moving technology onto a new platform, right?
Mhm.
So with our solution, we have everyone hosted on AWS GovCloud, and really what this is giving them is further, reliability in terms of not having downtime, more redundancy in terms of data backups and distribution of their networks. So really from kind of moving from on-premise solutions onto the cloud. The other thing is, lack of frequent updates. So a lot of the on-premise vendors, what they have is they'll have technology that they isn't updated very frequently or is hard to update. And
Mhm.
as a kind of cloud provider, we're able to bring in that SaaS model of, of continuously pushing up updates and continuously improving our technology for them.
Mhm.
And what really from there, what we have is, a really strong emphasis on usability and being user friendly. So other thing that you see in a lot of different systems and a lot of systems that I've seen on site is a lot of them are kind of cluttered in terms of a lot of fields. And what we've really done is made sure that things are more dynamic and made sure that it's falling kind of within like newer web principles in terms of an easy to use application.
Great, thank you. Now, Harthi, a question for you. So Richard mentioned being able to release updates very rapidly. Can you talk a little bit more about how Looker can help users release updates or push releases more rapidly and how that could affect time to value for customers?
Sure. So Looker can be run on the cloud hosted by us or on-prem by our customers, and we have monthly release cycles. And so on a monthly basis where we're adding new features, we're adding in new functionality to the product itself. And so deploying those changes into your product becomes a very easy process if it's hosted by us. And if you are hosting on-prem, it's just a few additional steps to make sure that you're on the latest release of Looker. And all of the changes kind of get embedded into your product directly. So as we start to release, new functionality around maybe custom visualizations or user experience, as you update your Looker product, those changes get added into your product for embedded analytics.
Great. And actually, we just had another listener question come in that ties in nicely to that. Michael wants to know how you envision bringing in additional integrations like video streaming or predictive analytics.
Sure. So I can address the predictive analytics piece first. Looker is a data analytics platform, and so we leverage the power of databases for analysis. And so all of the functions that are supported by your SQL compliant databases, even advanced statistical functions, we can leverage all of those functions right within the tool. For maybe that 10% of advanced analytics use cases, you can leverage Looker's modeling layer and that semantic layer to pull in cleaned data into tools like R and Jupyter Notebooks and Python to be able to do some of your advanced analytics. And so we have a REST API that you can easily use to pull in those data queries that have already been created and modeled and prepped and easily start your predictive analytics in some of these other tools. And on the topic of video streaming, we do have the ability to kind of embed content directly into dashboards. So you can embed videos directly into Looker reports or dashboards. And so some of that functionality already does exist.
Great. Richard, I'm curious, do you know if Mark 43 is currently embedding any sort of content into their dashboards right now? And if you could give an example of that, that'd be great to hear.
Yeah, sure. So we really stressed on making sure these dashboards are integrated within our application. So an example I can say off the top of my head is we have one dashboard that utilizes Looker's map visualizations and then also table visualizations. So what we're doing is plotting the locations of all these reports, and then also the table has a listing of all the report information. And what we're doing as an embed is having a deep link from either that map point or a row on the table to go directly to the report within our application.
Great, thank you. And then Haarthi, your last answer touched on this a little bit, or actually, I think mostly answered it, but I'd still like to address this listener question just to see if there's anything else you'd like to add. So this listener would like to know about Looker's provisions to integrate with Python code or any such open source language tools or libraries. And so if there's anything that you haven't touched on regarding that, please go ahead.
Yeah, and again, I think this comes back to being able to leverage Looker as a data platform. So anything that you've created in Looker, any data definitions, metrics, all of those can be easily transferred outside of Looker using our API. And so if you are doing kind of advanced analytics, predictive analytics in Python and kind of frameworks that support Python, it is very easy to pull in data from Looker into those tools to do that kind of advanced analytics.
Great. All right, so Haarthi, on another note, you mentioned something at the beginning of the presentation that was pretty interesting, which is that you mentioned Looker allowing users to identify areas of growth by making data available to customers. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so, providing your customers access to data, again, kind of keeps them more engaged within your product. And that typically translates into increased time within your product, which, typically tends to lead to user expansion, user growth. And so it's really just reiterating on the idea of providing a better experience for users through data within your product, keeps them engaged, keeps them using your product more and more, which usually translates into additional forms of revenue or referrals.
Got it, got it. And I would imagine there's also usage data that you could then use by taking a look at what they've looked at to see, oh, this is what's interesting. Maybe we should spend more time on developing this.
Right, and exactly. And even taking that to the next level of, oh, here I am providing an additional level of service to my customers. How can I expand on that? How can I, monetize that really?
hmm Now, Richard, I'm interested to hear how that gets applied at Mark 43, since again, your customers are working with emergencies. So how have you been able to use your data to increase your customer base or figure out what to deliver to your customers that they perhaps didn't, you perhaps weren't bringing to them before?
Yeah, sure. A lot of kind of what we can do from that perspective is kind of look at usability of our system. So
Mhm.
really what's important for us is looking at stats of what features are being utilized, what is being, especially from a new feature perspective, in terms of what people are really loving about the new features or maybe kind of avoiding. And then kind of that goes into a second layer of understanding kind of health of different clients. So as we understand like how many workflows are being conducted within the system, and then especially for things like compliance, we're able to understand, from a very high level, whether clients are, submitting things on time, or things getting approved within our system, kind of the velocity of their workflow within our system using stats.
Great, that's really interesting. All right, Harthi, I have a question for you. And so you talked about one way that Looker can be really helpful internally for different organizations is that it can improve your data governance and improve your internal process for analysts by settling on metric definitions and removing any ambiguity surrounding metric definitions. Could you talk about any best practices that you might have for an organization that's switching over to a solution like Looker and maybe isn't settled on one definition? So switching over to a singular definition and finding that definition. Do you have any best practices for that?
Yeah, I think what ends up happening as you start to think about your analytics is not really a kind of a black box solution, is that you start to have more and more conversations with kind of different teams to understand how they're defining key metrics, how they're defining their KPIs. And then you're taking a step further to set up that shared definition across all of these different users, and you're working with them to get consensus on what this one KPI means. And so going through that process, customers find very helpful. And then it's a matter of documenting that process as well. So is there a data dictionary that all of your users can go to leverage that one shared definition of a particular metric? Are there variances of that particular metric that can be reiterated or documented as additional metrics that maybe other members of other departments might use? And so really it's just working with team members to get consensus and being able to capture that in a solution where you can actually get down into the details and really understand how something is set up.
Great. So Richard, I'm curious, have you found any friction when you've worked with different clients in settling on a single metric definition? Or perhaps how has Looker helped you, or how have you experienced trying to create these different dashboards for different organizations that probably have their own nuances and how they're tracking things?
Yeah, sure. So from that, a lot of what that gets into is just the ability for us to iterate very quickly with Looker. So with Looker, you can make changes very quickly and just get it in front of the customer to understand if those metrics are accurate and also the metrics that they're looking to track. So we do, have a lot of variations of things. And the other component of that, and really the reason why we're pushing the Explore functionality so much is that they can really then dig into how they want to segment and how they want to look at information. From our perspective, our application, there's the database fields, and obviously, different users will be using their workflows a little differently, but from the perspective of the data that we have available in the Explorer, that'll all be consistent, from each client.
Mm. Great. And that transitions nicely to another question. Richard, we have a listener who's really curious to hear about what are some of the most popular services within the report library and within the user explorer tools that Mark 43 offers. What are you finding as being the most used and what's the most helpful?
Yeah, sure. So really the key things that are being used most often right now is from a compliance standpoint. Kind of historically, what we've used Looker for is to do a lot of compliance stats. So really that's the core usage that we have right now. And really after that, we're really pushing the Explorer very heavily. And that's a feature that we're right now kind of like beta testing with a lot of different clients and then rolling out, in a wide way within the coming months. And then from there, kind of the CAN reports we always find interesting, but really kind of what we saw there is really from the scalability perspective. So kind of as you were mentioning before, for any of these types of metrics or these types of dashboards, each client has very specific requirements on what they want. And really for that reason, the usage has been kind of a little more limited because kind of traditionally what we've done is more along the lines of professional services work where we built a very custom dashboard for a very specific user.
Haarthi, could you talk a little bit more about other Looker users that have had to define very specific metrics and how you've worked with them?
Sure. So, I think use cases tend to vary across different industries. And so we've worked with Looker is vertical and data agnostic. We connect to any SQL compliant database. So our end customers are using Looker for a wide variety of types of analytics, all the way from digital marketing use cases to sales ops to customer success and customer health, to financial reporting and near real-time reporting. And so the use cases for Looker tend to vary. So I'm happy to kind of address any specific use cases or any specific questions on a particular vertical that someone on the line might have.
Absolutely. And if any listeners would like to describe any specific use cases that they've come across where they have very specific data parameters, definitely pop those in the question box. Though we're beginning to run low on time, so I wanted to ask a question that perhaps both of you can weigh in on, Haarthi, from an internal perspective, and then Richard, maybe what you've learned with experience from adopting Looker. So if you could talk about how good UX intersects with embedded analytics, and could you talk about making the case for users who see UX as only a nice to have and not really something that's vital to the usability of a product?
Yeah, I can kind of take that question, and I'll let Richard answer after. User experience, I think, really is everything within a product like this where you're driving customer engagement. And so being able to provide the different types of users that are coming onto your site different curated experiences for them, I think goes a long way into driving up their engagement and goes a long way into making your product stickier. Stickier for them. So, I can't stress the importance of user experience enough. And with Looker, we touched a little bit on what those different user experiences looked like, but Looker has different frameworks on how to provide those user experiences. All the way from being able to kind of embed dashboards and reports in the form of iframes into your product, to being able to leverage our API to just kind of pull cleaned data points into your site, and creating different experiences that are maybe a combination of both of those, where you're embedding content and you're using our API to pull just the necessary information and create those super curated experiences.
Great, thank you. And then Richard, if you could maybe weigh in with your perspective on how good UX has been a really vital component of your service.
Yeah, sure. I think I would take it from the perspective of, for really almost any piece of software, there's always kind of been other ways of doing it and older ways of doing it. And really what we stress at Mark 43 is kind of bringing that more innovative and that new user experience to users in order to make them more efficient. You look at something like smartphones, for example, a lot of different iterations, but really kind of through different operating system changes, from early Palm Pilots to kind of now iOS and Android, a lot of like core functionality of, making calls, taking notes, things are all there. But really kind of what's evolved is that user experience of making it easy and making customers more efficient at their work. And really that's, kind of the reason or the way that I see user experience, and really kind of what we're using very heavily to differentiate Mark 43 as, public safety software.
Great. All right. Well, that's about all we have time for today. Thank you so much to everybody for attending. Richard and Haarthi, thank you for all of your insightful answers to these questions and for your presentations today. Everyone, I hope you had about at least half as much fun as I did. Thanks so much to our sponsor, Looker. Once again, to Haarthi and Richard, and to all of you for attending. I'm Hannah Flynn, and you can find Product Management Today on Twitter at ProdMGMT And make sure to check out the URLs at the bottom of the slide for the schedule for the rest of the webinar series. It'll be updated as we go. And thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.